All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Studio Series 86 Dinobot Slug with Daniel. Yeah, I mean, it's Slag. Uh, they have to call him Slug now for like trademark reasons and because like they learned several decades too late that Slag is like a bad word, like a swear word in some parts of the world. But yeah, it's Slag. I prefer him being called Slag than Slug, but yeah, no, he's another one of these big leader class Studio Series 86 Dinobots to go with Grimlock. That's 2 down, 3 to go, and he's a really good figure. He looks really nice in his Triceratops mode, big and chunky like he should be. He really does like. I mean, he's not super heavy or anything, but it definitely has like a big chunk presence like Grimlock did, which is really nice. And yeah, articulation in this mode. His mouth can open, which is nice. So you can go, excuse me. The front legs here are just going to be the robot mode arms, so they've got a lot of articulation from that, where they've got a ratchet joint here. They can go out to the side. They've got kind of a double jointed knee here, which can't really bend back much more than that, but it can bend forward. You can kind of have it where it's like straight out like this, and then have the other legs kind of go down to meet it. I think that looks worse. I generally try to like bring it back a few clicks and then compress it on this this double joint, so it's got more of like a natural bend like that. And then with the back legs here, they rotate like this. They do rotate here, but they're also compressing into the to the thigh here, just because of how transformation works. And then they can bend back and forth here as well. So what I generally do is like, to kind of make it meet the length of the front legs like that, I'll compress it on this joint a little bit and bring it forward. So otherwise it would have to be like really far back like that, which I think looks a little awkward. So I kind of bring it in a little bit like that, and then bring it more straight down. And I think that's probably the best look for it, at least in my opinion. But yeah, pretty okay articulation for dinosaur mode. I mean, you weren't really expecting him to have a whole lot because he is just like a big chunky Dinobot. Like, they don't usually have a ton of articulation, but it works well enough. As for accessories, he comes with Daniel here, which is even more useless really than the little wheelie figure that came with Grimlock, because at least wheelie, like, if you bent the legs in a certain way where he was kind of standing like this, and you can have him do like a neat like slingshot firing pose where like that doesn't really look good on Daniel because he doesn't have a weapon or anything to shoot while doing that. So it kind of just looks like he's like running. Also kind of lame that they didn't, give him like at least a sticker or something on the front here to like show Daniel's head, because right now it's just kind of like a, one of those little exosuits with just kind of like a glossed over dome here. Like, there's no character or anything because it doesn't have a face. So, I don't really like this figure very much, but luckily it's just kind of a superfluous little add-on to the set. So like you can kind of just put it in a box and forget about it. It's not like it really takes away from the figure itself. It doesn't really feel like they leached plastic away from the rest of the thing to fit this guy into the budget. So, not a problem. Like, these guys are already like kind of the biggest leader class figures that we've had in a little while. So I don't really mind getting this little extra accessory. I'm curious to see what they're going to do for the other 3 Dinobots when they do them, because like Wheelie and Daniel were really the only 2 characters in the movie that were of this scale. I mean, I guess you could do Spike as well, but it might just be the exact same figure as this, because there's nothing that says this is, Daniel instead of Spike, because it doesn't have a face. I don't know. There are a few things you can do with him. I find it really hard to actually get him to tab on in dinosaur mode. He's got these little like angled slots down here, which correlate to these pegs on the side of the dinosaur mode, and you're supposed to, like, it was kind of difficult to do with Wheelie too, but at least he was kind of hanging on to Grimlock's neck, whereas here it's like, yeah, his legs are just kind of like really awkwardly spread, and it doesn't really look that comfortable for him. I don't know. I don't think it looks particularly good, but whatever. It's a thing that you can do. But yeah, for now, I'll just put him off to the side. He also comes with his little gun here, which does store in this mode. You can actually take it, and there's this little hole in the bottom of the tail, and then it slots in here, and it kind of like makes the tail a little bit longer. That's a neat way to store it. I think that it makes the tail look a little bit too long. I don't know. I might experiment with like 3D printing a piece at some point that can plug in there in its place to just like finish off the tail and get rid of that gap and round it off, but also not have it be awkwardly sticking out like that. But I don't know, especially because like it does store in robot mode, but not super well. And like I'm not sure if I'm going to display him with a gun because Grimlock also came with a gun that didn't store that well in his alt mode. So like I don't display him with the gun. So like I don't know, it'd feel weird for some of them to have their weapons and some of them to not have their weapons. I didn't personally, I know a lot of people like the Dinobots with their guns and swords, but they're so humongous that I don't think they really need them to be like intimidating. I don't know. It's nice that it does store, but you know, it really, I guess my complaints are more about A, Grimlock, his weapon not storing in his alt mode, and B, that weapon not storing quite as well in robot mode. But this works well enough. You know, it maybe makes the tail a little bit too long, but I think it works. Speaking of Grimlock, there they are together. And then we'll bring in Slash too, because ask and you shall receive. Literally, I was just recording the review for Slash the other day, and I was saying like, oh, maybe I'll find Studio Series 86 Slug soon, and then I found it literally the next day. So it's kind of nice that it worked out that way. But yeah, there they are together. Obviously, Slash is supposed to be with the Power of the Primes Dinobots, but I like her just kind of being like a little tiny Dinobot to go along with the much bigger Dinobots. Like I think it works relatively well. But yeah, obviously these are the two that you really want to see together, and I think that works pretty well. They're both nice and big. Grimlock is bigger, which I like, but Slag still has like a real sort of oomphy presence to him as well. And then real quick, just to show him off with some other size figures, here he is with bumping my light there. There he is with Optimus and Wheeljack and Bumblebee, just to get kind of a variety of figure heights shown off with him. And again, I think that works really well. In the cartoon, I think that they were a bit bigger in dinosaur mode, but, it's kind of a trade-off because, like, you don't want them to be too absurdly humongous in robot mode, whereas, like, in the cartoon, they're kind of much bigger in dinosaur mode, whereas, like, just the physics of how the toys have to work, they kind of have to be a little bit more compressed in dinosaur mode and then bigger in robot mode, which I'm fine with. But yeah, I mean, this is not entirely accurate scale. I think that he should be pretty, like, a little bit bigger, but I think it works relatively well, and it definitely gets the point across, and it definitely is nice to have, like, a dinosaur that is able to be taller than a Voyager height figure, right? Whereas, like, having them as like deluxes and Voyagers and Power of the Primes is like, they just kind of looked a little bit too small, even though, they were big enough, I guess, in robot mode. Like these guys really, I think, get the scale a lot better. But yeah, anyway, here we'll get to transforming the figure, which is going to be kind of a workout on this setup. I've got my arms like way reached around the camera right now. But yeah, you can leave the gun on or take it off. I guess I'll just take it off for now. But for the back legs here, you want to fold the bottom section here into the calf, I guess, or thigh. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's more the thigh, but and then fold the lower thigh into the rest of the thigh. And so it kind of just compresses as this nice little cylinder here of leg, and that'll fold into the legs later. The tail here, well, actually here first, you want to take these side panels and they just fold up and just leave them out like that for now. The tail kind of unclips from the feet here, and when you unclip that, then you can untab the legs from this this peg that tabs into them on the armature that the tail is on. And then you can bring that whole section kind of up and out of the way on the double hinge and just get out of the way. What's kind of neat is, I mean, it's sort of maybe cheating, but like, usually with the Slag transformation, his toes would end up here, but these are actually not his toes. His toes are down here, so you can see like kind of the similar sculpted detail there, which is like, yeah, I mean, I guess it bothers me a little bit on principle, but it's not really cheating if you're just, willing to say like, yeah, actually the toes don't end up there. Similarly, like, it's kind of cheating in the way that his bottom jaw doesn't actually become the chest in robot mode, because that's just hanging out here. But if you're willing to say that his chest in robot mode actually is just a separate piece and isn't the bottom jaw, then it isn't cheating, if that makes sense. Like that's how it worked on the original toy, but like to make it more accurate, like you wouldn't even necessarily say that this even looks like the bottom jaw anymore. It's not like Rhinox where they're giving him like fake molars to to match with the lower rhino jaw. Like it's just a separate piece. It doesn't have to become the bottom of the jaw. But yeah, anyway, that's neither here nor there. It probably doesn't bother most people, but just something that I thought would be worth mentioning. But yeah, you take this whole armature, just get it out of the way, And yeah, the legs do kind of a neat trick where, again, like usually this would be the top of the robot mode, but then like these would are then this would have to be like the footprint, whereas like they wanted to make the feet a little bit smaller, so they shifted it around and rotated the waist so it would kind of, you know, end up like this, where the knees are here and the legs are folded up this way, just so like this whole, you know, the bottoms of the feet didn't have to be quite as chunky as they would be usually, which is kind of a neat trick to kind of like get things looking the same, but like actually, you know, move it around in different ways. But yeah, then you can just unfold the legs here. They're on double hinges, nice ratchet joints. Do that on both sides. And then you rotate them around at the waist. And then for the legs here, it's helpful if you kind of activate the ankle tilt here and just untab that. And then you take these sections kind of behind here and you fold them up like that, which allows you to fold these in like there. And then you just want to, you know, kind of fold that hinge up more like that. Then you can plug that back in. And then if you want, you can tab the foot back in. But since we're just going to, you know, use the ankle tilt anyway, I'm going to leave that unlocked. You do the same thing on the other side. Then we can kind of get him stood up here. Then for the arms, you just take the fists in here and they're folded into the dino feet. You just kind of click them up like that and then they rotate around. The swivel for this is like kind of offset so that it can sit a little bit more naturally in robot mode, but when you rotate it around, it kind of shifts up a little bit, which allows it to have enough space to fold into the dino foot. Again, kind of another little neat trick to get things in the right place there. Yeah, you just do that on both sides, and then you can bring his arms down, and then you want to actually, he's going to widen at the torso. So to do that, you want to take the section here with the chest or the faux like jaw or whatever, and fold that down. It kind of tabs into these sections here, and then so these whole sections are on like these little double hinges that you fold out, and they take these two panels of the frill with them. Like you can see, there's kind of a split right there. So like it's tempting to kind of like pull it out that way, but that kind of flexes these in a way that's not great. So you kind of want to pull it straight out so that these are coming more down rather than flexing out like that. And then when you do that, you can fold that around like that. So you can see this is where it is for robot mode. That's where it is for dinosaur mode. So again, kind of pull straight down with that and get them like that. And then you can take these sections of the frill and fold it onto the back right there like that. Then you want to take these sections and just fold them out a little bit just so you can take the whole section with the bottom jaw and fold it into the torso, and then take the head itself and that'll fold up. And then you can bring this back in. It has kind of like a hinge just to help get things out of the way while you're doing this, but it ends up in the same place in both modes. And then you can take the chest, fold that in, plugging it in and kind of locking it all in place. Excuse me, sorry. Then last but not least, you take the backpack here, and it's got two little tabs on the back of the frill, and then these little slots right here on this piece. Kind of fold up, double hinge, and plug that in. And then you take the kind of, I guess, fake toes, and then fold them up like that. And then this armature that the tail is on folds around, and it kind of sits in like that. And yeah, there you pretty much have him in robot mode. He's a pretty good looking figure overall. There are some pieces that kind of float around a little bit, which can make it hard for to get everything positioned in a way. Like when you're messing around with them, you kind of end up bumping a few things. Like these pieces here kind of fold back and forth, and the head, this panel, I think this is the worst bit of it, is that like it doesn't really lock into place. So like when you're adjusting the head on the ball joint, it kind of like goes up and down. Like it's not too loose, like it's not very tight, but it can stay in place when you're posing it. It's just like when you're actually messing around with it, it can be kind of annoying to move that piece around. Otherwise, articulation, his head is on a ball joint here, which again is like kind of annoying with that panel, especially when you're like working inside of the whole dinosaur head, but it works well enough. His shoulders are on nice clicky ratchet joints, same as the, you can see what I'm talking about with these panels flipping up and down, same as the dinosaur mode, and they can go out to the side. It's got a bicep swivel, double hinge elbow, wrist rotation, which is a little bit offset, but like I find in most ways that you're realistically like moving the wrist, like you don't really notice that. He's got a nice big waist joint, although that does kind of get in the way of the stuff that's tabbed in back here. Like, you know, once you start turning the waist, it kind of pops that out, which is a little annoying, but you know, it works. And then for the legs here, he's got clicky joints. forward and back, not a ratchet out to the side, but it's nice and tight. He's got a thigh swivel, and then just because of transformation, depending on like which of these knee joints you're using first, you can actually get like a pretty deep knee bend out of him, which is nice because like the Dinobots have like, you know, famously like really chonky lower legs, so it's impressive that they can get like this deep a curl. And then the feet here are on tilt. So yeah, he's got pretty good articulation overall. I find that the joints in the legs can be a little bit annoying for like clicking them in the right place to get him to stand up, because he tends to do that where he like tends to lean back a little bit on the lower ratchets there, unless you like really click them into the right place. Like if you kind of like click this one back and then click this one forward, so it kind of like moves the whole leg a little bit lower or a little bit further back on the center of gravity. Like I think that works a little bit better. And again, with the ankle tilts, you can kind of get it in a way that he's able to stand okay without leaning back like that. But it definitely can be a little bit annoying. In terms of accessories, he comes with obviously his gun, which he can hold in his hand just fine. It's got, you know, the peg is far enough back that he can hold in his hand. And then for storage, there's a few different things you kind of can do. You can sort of peg it onto the back here at an angle, but it kind of limits how far out you can bend the like back wings. Like this is, you know, it kind of locks it in like that, which is a little annoying. And then you can have it back how it was in dinosaur mode, but you kind of have to take the section with the tail on it and then like fold it a little bit further back. Or like if you tab it in, there we go. It, it kind of like unpegs a lot of the thing, because you can see it doesn't sit quite as flush as it did before, which kind of like unlocks it, and it means it maybe makes this piece a little bit too loose. Like it tends to kind of flail around sometimes and become untabbed, which is kind of a bummer because like it stored pretty well in dinosaur mode. So then having it like just get close to storing well in robot mode, but not quite, is kind of a bummer. Yeah, again, I'm not sure. Like there are things that you can do, like depending on which of these areas you have tabbed in, it works a little bit better. Like, gosh, like this whole section can be kind of a mess. But if you get it tabbed in where like that gray piece is locked in where it's supposed to be, then this, like just the tail is the loose part. Like that works the best, but when you're moving it around, it kind of tends to untab everything else as well. So again, kind of annoying, not the end of the world. Like it definitely stays well enough when you just have him standing there, but when you're actually like messing around with it, it can be kind of a bother. And then, yes, of course, we can bring in Daniel again, who he's got a little peg right here on the bottom of just one of his thighs, and then he's got peg holes on either shoulder here. It only really works on this shoulder. You can kind of peg him in, and yeah, I mean, that looks better than it did in the other mode. Apologies if you can hear a lawnmower in the background, but again, like, this didn't really happen in the movie, so like, whatever. I don't think it looks good enough just because like the figure itself doesn't look that good. I mean, Slag looks great, but Daniel doesn't really look that good, so like I'm not ever going to display him that way. What kind of sucks compared to Wheelie is that like Wheelie, at least you could kind of have him on his own as a separate display piece, whereas I don't think Daniel really looks good on his own. Like he looks okay sitting on him, but it only makes the overall image look a little bit worse because he's there. So whatever. But yeah, I can show them off with here we have Grimlock, so you can see how they stack up next to each other. And then here's Optimus Prime. We'll bring in Bumblebee, Wheeljack, and Slash just to get all of them there together. You can see how they scale with a variety of figures. What's nice is that like he's definitely on par in terms of height with Grimlock, but he's a little bit shorter, which I like, just because I prefer Grimlock being the biggest of the Dinobots. Like I'm happy that they're all like, they don't have to be different size classes, like where Grimlock's a Voyager and Slag's a Deluxe, like it was with Power of the Primes. Like I'm happy they're both leaders, but it is nice that at least, you know, at the eyes, Grimlock is a little bit taller, excuse me. Like obviously Slag is taller with his dino head, but you know, it still works relatively well where Grimlock is a little bit more imposing. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about this figure. You know, like I said, there's a few problems that I have with them. Sometimes that knee leaning thing can be a little bit irritating. The weapon doesn't store quite as well as I would like it to, but at least it does literally have a place to go in both modes, which is honestly more than you can expect in Transformers figures nowadays, where they usually just kind of, half-ass the weapon storage, where it's like either it can store in one mode or the other and not both, or like the storage is just like plopping it on top of the alt mode, which I don't think is very good. And then he's got, I guess minor pieces of cheating sort of with like the bottom jaw and the feet, but like if you're willing to just accept that those things don't become those parts in the dinosaur mode, then it's not really cheating. Like, it's certainly not enough to ruin the figure for me, but it is like something conceptually that bugs me a tiny bit, more so than, or less so than, like, things like Optimus Prime with his fake grill here. But even that I can, kind of forgive. But like things like Runabout and Runamuck with their fake chest, where it's like, that just kills the figure for me entirely. This I can deal with. Like, it's not too much of a problem, especially since like all of those shapes are just kind of amorphous robot parts anyway. So like it's reasonable to think that he would just have kind of similar details in both modes, even if they aren't like literally the same parts. Anyway, again, that's not going to bother, I think, like 99% of people. Like, I really, with Transformers fans, I find that like that bothers me way more than it does a lot of other people. So neither really here nor there. But yeah, he's a good figure. He's got good articulation. He's got, nice joints. He's big. He's chunky. He really does have a presence on the shelf, especially with Grimlock in both modes. Again, like, Daniel as an accessory is kind of nothing, but it doesn't really feel like it detracts from the figure. It's just like, oh, you can put it in a box and hardly forget that it ever existed. Like, there were times when I was like messing around with Grimlock, and then I would like see Wheelie sitting somewhere. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot this came with that figure, because like you don't need to display every accessory with the figure that it comes with. Like, you can just toss it in a box or put it on a shelf by itself, like I did with Wheelie. But yeah, no, pretty good figure overall. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Studio Series 86 Dinobot Slug with Daniel.